What's up? I just wanted to talk about some gear. What's a good way to start these? You know, I'm a fan of quality gear, stuff made with good components. And this one may seem a little niche or super niche, but realistically it makes a huge difference. Only if you're using real amps though. Because you need to get your signal from your pedal board to like a faraway location, some other room, Narnia's door, you know? And you gotta run XLR lines all the way to it. So traditionally, we're used to using SGIs. SGIs have just been kind of like a staple. They sound good, they work great, but they're two separate units and they need to be powered separately, and they kind of come with their own little power supplies and everything. And they work great. They sound, honestly, rock solid. But there is now a new solution. And like I was saying, I'm a fan of quality components and stuff built from the heart. And this one is. It's got a lot of high quality goodies inside, notably Jensen Transformers. And that sounds familiar to me. The DSO? Okay, actually, now's a good time to figure this out. I don't know what it's called. DSO? Plus? I don't know. I mean, depending on where you grew up, probably determines how you say it. I'm from Texas. We have a large Spanish influence, so I would say DSO. You may say DSO. So anyways, the DSO, it's used for amps and pedals. It's a direct box that doesn't duck your signal. And it makes a huge difference because, yeah, you're not losing like 15 to 20 dB. And the Jensen Transformers are really good in it. So good that I've got some nice mic preamps at home that have great transformers in it. And this kind of compensates the same way. So not only are you getting the not line loss, but you're getting the great transformer qualities. It kind of brightens the signal a little bit, gets a little bit crispier, but kind of in a nice way. It's like a way you can always like pull back the treble a pinch, but I would rather have more in it open up more than choke. So anyways, Jensen Transformers. Now I bring that up because talking about the SGIs and what they do in running XLRs, long lines to some room with amps in it or something, this does the same thing. But I like it because it can just exist on my board instead of needing to be some like separate something powered by, like Iron Man's chest thing. And yeah, it can just live on my board and it can be powered by my Strymons and it's just one unit and I love that. Now, it's like I was saying, it's got Jensen Transformers in it. So I did a side-by-side comparison, just audio test between SGIs and this new TXRX-S, stands for stereo, to see how it sounds, how it compares. And it's super similar. So basically the SGIs they're pretty well rounded, but they sounded like that much more choked in comparison, whereas these Jensen Transformer based kinds just felt like it opened the top end a little bit more. Depending on kind of where you're listening, like if it's on YouTube or Instagram or something like that, it's gonna compress the audio, so you actually may not even hear the difference. But this is what it sounds like. So like I said, you might not really be able to tell the difference, but whenever I was there and I had my in-ears in and I'm playing it and testing it, I can feel it, I can hear it. I hear like almost a little like subtle amount of harmonic richness and a little bit more top end, We're talking a tiny bit. And when we analyzed the EQ and saw the differences, it showed that the SGI, to make up for what the TXRX was doing, basically it needed to raise its dB by like, I don't know, 2 or 3 or something like that. And then there was this kind of like shoot up like of a shelf in the top end, somewhere around like, I don't know, it was like 8K and onward, maybe a little bit higher. So generally kind of frequencies that your guitar is not doing much in, but air. And air can be helpful. It can kind of help just an overall kind of breath, shimmer, kind of airy vibe to your guitar that can actually be pretty vital if it gets cut off. Now, granted, most people are gonna mix that out. So it's more for just like being able to, in my opinion, offer as much as possible when playing. And also just the way it feels for me, because I'm generally listening to my EQ and my guitar kind of well-rounded and open, not like heavily mixed or engineered or anything like that. So it's just kind of giving the full EQ spectrum. So all that to say, if you're not somebody who really cares about that little minute detail, then I get it. So that's just like the mega nerd in me, like cares about the quality details, because honestly, it's a bunch of little puzzle pieces on my board that eventually all add up. And if you have like 3 or 4 that are kind of taken away a little bit, then eventually you get a larger image that's not as big and full. So I'm a huge fan of having just as high quality goodies as possible, if I have the option. So that's what this does. It's 1 unit, it sends it out. You can just go 1/4 inch out of the side if you already have like something to plug into a church, or if your just amps are right next to you or something, you can do that. But if not, you can do this. Normally it's XLR out of these units, but there's no XLR, like at all. It's just, what is this? So for the first time ever that I've heard or seen, it runs on Cat 5. Cat 5 Ethernet cable, you know, your internet runs on it. So it's like super analog, and it just runs everything super well, and it sounds fantastic. You probably won't notice a difference running between a Cat 5 or XLRs instead. And also if generally your, you know, where you're playing is set up to have XLRs, little adapter, you can just kind of go to XLRs, it's fine. Some people may find that to be a bit more of a hassle, but I'm into it, man. It kind of simplifies, consolidates everything. Also, there's a reason why the Cat 5, beyond transferring signal. So kind of the fancy boy part of this is not only just like high quality components, great audio clarity, all of that kind of stuff, but there's a 24 volt version as well. And it can send power up and down the Cat 5, which is kind of crazy and new. So virtually you could have your power coming up to the Cat 5 from, let's say, your amp room. It's plugged in, the power's plugged into the receiver, and it's shooting the power back up to your pedal board through this, and then you virtually just jump this off to your power units, like your Strymons or so on and so forth, whatever you have. And you can jump it in your power and power your board through this. So you have one cable going to your board, obviously your guitar cable and everything, but you're kind of minimizing a lot, your sends, your power and all that kind of stuff in one place. Pretty cool. So it comes with this big old girl, little 100-footer Cat 5. It's pretty unique, pretty fancy. You know, you got the little cable end here. It's like a little protected XLR looking, but sneaky Trojan horse Cat 5. So all that to say, it sits in a really nice, tight spot on the top right corner of my board. And it's just one unit, and it's just powered in one spot from my Strymons, and then I can just shoot this Cat 5, or if I need to change over to this adapter or whatever, and go XLRs out, which I did at an event recently, worked like a charm. Zero noise, and man, the first thing that I noticed right away was, like I was kind of mentioning earlier, a bit of like harmonic information that I'm not used to. My cleans just had a little bit more air and top end, and it just felt like things that I wasn't normally used to experiencing whenever I'm strumming some like light notes or whatever, hearing some like harmonic elements. That was really cool and super inspiring. And I feel like it was just giving me more than normal, where maybe other units might be choking these subtle details. But man, that stuff changes the way that everything reacts. And so the receiver box looks the same. It's the same size. Essentially, you just run back into this guy here, Cat 5, and like I said, adapter if you have XLRs or whatever. And then you've got your outs that go to your amp. So one unit, one place, but I kind of like it for traveling purposes, because then I don't have to manage like 2 different units and a bunch of different things and cables and whatever. It's just one spot. And then you've got little ground lifts on both sides, just in case, to eliminate hum. Dude, this thing was dead silent. And that was refreshing because I've experienced units in the past that made a bunch of noise or had a bunch of interference or something like that. So this didn't do that. So realistically, I mean, they're kind of priced the same. So it kind of comes down to preference. The SGIs are tanks, man. They're tried and true. They last. They run I think 300 a piece. And this runs about like 700. So it's a little bit more. But realistically, like I was saying, the two main things that stand out to me are the quality of the components, giving me the overall signal kind of tonal advantage, as well as just consolidated to one unit. Worry about less, powering in one place versus two that I have to manage. Receiver box, one unit, just tighter, more consolidated. But ultimately what I'm looking for is something that sounds the best. Even if it's like that much, like I said, it all adds up, and eventually it can, start to muddy the overall signal if you have like 3-4 things that are slowly taking away little pieces. It all counts. Also, there's a little polarity switch, which is super helpful, so you don't have to necessarily rely on anyone else to change your phase. But man, new gear is fun, and I bring all this up because I used it for the first time fully like a week or two ago, and it worked perfectly. And that was one thing I always kind of dreaded, was as I go places, play somewhere else where it's like outside of just like everything's already set up for me, is it gonna sound just as good as it does back home where everything is feeling great? And it did. Actually, almost sounded a little better. Here's a little walkthrough of what it looked like when I used it. So my thing's quality, this thing's quality. I love it. It sounds amazing, and it worked when things were in a pinch.